Good evening, everyone. I hope your week went really nice and smooth. And if you went through some obstacles, I hope you were able to navigate them. So I had a couple themes play out this week in my life with, people I care about, as long with myself. And the theme that I've noticed is everyone in a leadership position, whether it's being a mother or a father, a boss or a manager, someone who has some kind of subordinates, whether it's in the military or in your personal life, one of the constant themes that I have noticed is how to handle someone when they are not aligned with the goals that you need. So let's say a child, for instance, isn't behaving properly, or you have an employee who's not behaving, or you have a significant other who's not behaving, and everyone's their own person, right? We're all human. So we have our flaws. Every single person has that. We as leaders have that, and then we as employees or subordinates or whoever it is. So what I've noticed with everyone in my life, everyone's facing a struggle right now. And thankfully, this is something I did struggle with, but something I have learned. And what I have, come across to learn is redefining discipline. A lot of times people view discipline as punishment. And punishment harms another human's self-worth. So as somebody who has struggled with self-worth for a really long time, I know that what that can do. So, going back to my time in the Marine Corps after I was raped, I got put in the brig because I was drunk at the time. So I got put in the brig for underage drinking. The charges ended up getting dismissed and I got out because of the naval judge. However, I faced a consequence because of my actions, and that was me getting raped to begin with. So I didn't need punishment on top of that. And I received punishment not only from the brig, but losing my schooling benefits, becoming homeless, and I dealt with more than just consequence, right? Like my self-worth was already destroyed because someone violated my personal space and violated me when I was vulnerable. So that already made me feel a level of distrust. That already made me blame myself, and that already made me have a deteriorated sense of self-worth. So I already had obstacles to deal with, right? I didn't need other obstacles. Those things were not going to change me. What was going to change me was getting therapy and me learning how my behaviors, my beliefs, and my feelings were leading me down certain roads. So what happened was I had an absence of knowledge and judgment that I needed to make healthy decisions for myself. And I have gone through different aspects, both in the military and in my post-Marine Corps life, where people constantly in leadership roles have this idea that punishing inspires correct behavior. That's absolutely false. Also, people define discipline as punishment, spare the rod, spoil the child, those concepts. That is not discipline, right? If you think about what it is to be disciplined, it's maintaining a standard consistently. So it's setting a standard, maintaining it, going on a diet, eating that way every day. Also going to the gym every day, doing something you enjoy for yourself, doing that every day. Affirmations, doing that every day, paying my bills, doing that every time a bill comes up. So discipline is being able to set a standard and maintain the standard. That's what discipline really means. It doesn't mean to create punishment on another human being, right? Punishment deteriorates self-worth. So when you maneuver into a position of leadership, no matter what aspect of your life it is, you don't need to punish people to inspire behavior, because life already has consequences built into it. So when you think about someone's behavior and they're not working the way you are, you have to know about who you're talking to. What inspires them? What is their sense of purpose, right? Why is it they're here? If they don't know that themselves, then your job is to help them find that. What makes you feel alive? What makes you want to come to work? What makes you want to be a spouse to someone? What makes you want to give back? Those qualities are what you need to find out about someone. Because when you find out someone's purpose, you find out what motivates or drives their behavior. So when you find that out and you understand their purpose and their motivations, then you have to find out what their goals are. So someone's goals could be getting a promotion at work. Maybe they want to see themselves in your position, or maybe they want something more and their life's not aligned. That's because they have a behavior and belief that are not aligned with where they want to go, right? It happens to all of us. I have areas of my life that are like that I'm doing my best to work through. And everyone has that. That makes us a human being, right? We have a sense of purpose and soul, but we have to deal with the day-to-day aspects of what it is to be human and feel less than perfect, right? So where we should be feeling whole, but we have those struggles at times that we feel less than. And as someone who has struggled with self-worth for a very long time, when it's completely deteriorated, sometimes there's no coming back from that. That's where substance abuse comes in. That's where suicide comes in, because you don't feel there's anything that you value in the world, and you don't feel that anything about you is valued. So if you're taking about an emotional spectrum that someone has, 100 is being valued, having purpose, living out God's plan and executing that for others and being of service to others, where people and humans view you as valuable. So a great example would be maybe an Oprah Winfrey or a Tony Robbins. They coach people, they give people, a sense of inspiration and motivation. They have little nuggets of knowledge that we look towards, of nuggets of truth of how to live life. And when we take on their truth and we're inspired, we start changing our lives, right? So they're like role models of society. So for us, we look for those things, right? But when we live our day-to-day lives, we don't always feel that we can live up to those great expectations, but we each have our own purpose in our own way, no matter how big or small. So when we tie our actions, beliefs, and feelings to purpose, that's when we're connecting to God, right? Because now we're attached to the source. So now that we have that, we feel connected in our present to the universe. So everything has meaning to it. Being outside and, connecting to nature, hearing the birds sing, taking time to listen, hearing the wind blow, we feel a sense of being alive, and that's inspiring, because then you're like, wow, someone created all of this for me to observe and be a part of. So someone loves me enough to make this and for me to be here as a human. So what do I do to give back, right? That's a mindset that elevates our consciousness and connects us to God. So on the other side of the spectrum is when we feel disconnected and we live in this box. So call it the little black box, because that's what mine was. It was a little black box that no one was allowed in except me, myself, and I. So I lived in that box, and I would come out and I'd look at the world, and shit was scary as fuck. I was so scared, I could not handle it. So basically I had to learn that the world is not a scary place. I had to be mindful that there are situations that are risky, right? And there's a risk spectrum. There's each a level of risk that I can handle, and some that's a little too much for me. So I had to go through life and learn that risk is a necessary part of learning, right? Pain and a lot of negative emotions are also a part of our learning process, our growth process for our evolutions to connect to our highest self, which is connecting to God. So if I'm bringing it back down to leadership, right? So now that we know someone's purpose, how they think, what motivates them, and their goals, now when someone is below the standard, where they're not meeting an expectation, so they're underperforming at work, maybe they created a legal issue they shouldn't have, maybe they created unnecessary risk, that person's thinking something, right? That they're not acting correctly. It could be a sense of selfishness, a sense of survival instinct. It could be any negative emotion, right? So now that you know what inspires them and the good in them, you need to show someone that you see that. So that's called the sandwich technique. Does not matter if you're doing it to your spouse or you're doing it to your employee. Everyone in your life deserves to be sandwiched. So keep that in mind. What that is when you acknowledge and you see the good in someone and you see something that relates to their purpose. So when you acknowledge someone, you see them and you're like, you're brave. I acknowledge your bravery. When I see you every day, I see what a brave person you are. I see that you're authentic. I see that you're genuine. I see that you strive to be the best every day. That's the first layer of the sandwich, right? That's put that as your foundation. So it's the main piece of bread at the bottom. You need to acknowledge the good that you see in that and their highest self. Because when you acknowledge that and you witness that, that person will remember to deliver that to you subconsciously. So now the next step to that is the standard of behavior that's not being met. You're not coming at the person saying you're not good enough. You're not attacking their self-worth. You're actually building it up. And in the same time, it's going to drive results, which is also going to help your self-worth. So what happens in that instance is now you have to actually address the problem. The problem is an area of opportunity, meaning that this is a place where the leader or the mentor has an opportunity to connect with the person who's not meeting the standard. So the conversation at that point is, I want to bring this up because I am seeing an area that you're struggling with. So this area could be, I see that you're struggling with this insecurity. I see that, this situation occurred and this is how you handled it. Can you tell me why you made the decisions you made? Can you tell me what you were thinking? Because now you need to understand why the person made the decisions they made. When you find out the flaws in their thinking, so we all have beliefs and thoughts and ideas that are not rational. That's part of being human. It's part of our human journey. But remember, you as a leader, you are there to inspire. You are not there to punish. You are there to lead. That's the difference between a leader and a person placed in management. That's the truth. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I see this all the time. How do I punish my employees? I'm glad that you're asking for help, but the answer is you don't punish them. So let's dial it back to inspiring the right behavior. Now that you have the middle layer there, the last part that you want to bring it back to is creating a resolution. So the third part of it is you're ending on a positive note. So what you're doing at that point, when you're ending it on a positive note, the resolution that you need to come to, you should work towards it together. Because now that person is involved in the rehabilitation process, meaning they're growing as a result of your leadership. So now you're offering them something called emotional currency. Now, what you're doing is, in that situation, the standard that you're not meeting going forward, this is how we're going to meet that standard. Here are the behaviors that I need to see from you so that I can ensure that you're on the right path. And I can help you go to the next level, achieve your goals, achieve that promotion. I want to be your advocate, I want to be your supporter, and I want to be your number one fan. What I need to be able to see from you is that your behaviors are moving in that direction and that you want that for yourself. Because now you're attaching it back to their purpose. And remember, you already connected with their purpose. So you're doing it twice, and that's the sandwich. And the in-between is the behavior that's not going over well. So what we're doing now is when you understand the importance of the sandwich, you're going to move on to thinking about emotional currency. You as a leader, you need to be able to deliver value. Everything with any human is a value exchange. How do we exchange value? All of us have emotions. When you're in a leadership position, you can be a leader who leads out of ego, or you can be a leader who leads from the soul. You have those choices every day. So a leader who leads from the ego is all about power. The power to make you do something, make you fall in line. And if you don't, I'm punishing you. That's the ego. That's the self-interest of, I want to be dominant and in control. When you're leading from the soul, it requires finesse, it requires skill, and it requires your faith in God. And I know this to be true because I have experienced it time and time again. So I know that when I witness divinity in someone else, when I witness God in someone else, when I see their purpose in someone else, that automatically inspires them. It breaks down their defense mechanism. So now the next part of it is being able to put everything together. Because what you're doing is you're sending out, when you're acknowledging and witnessing the good in someone, you're saying that you acknowledge that God created them too. That's really what you're saying. And that touches people's hearts. Believe me, it really does. And you're building a bond. And that bond is what facilitates the emotional currency to go through. It allows you to have influence. Influence is when you are now able to have that person listen and respect you. And when someone's not listening to you or falling in line, they don't respect you. And the reason they don't respect you is you don't maintain a standard. So you're not disciplined, meaning that you're wishy-washy on what you accept and what you don't, and you don't have respect. Because if you have respect, you're setting the boundaries and the standards, and you have the ability to be disciplined to maintain it because you're already at that leadership level. You've already learned that that standard is what is required to be successful. So because you have already learned that, when they see that in you, they're inspired to become that. So being a leader, you have to demonstrate certain things so that people around you, no matter what your role is, fall in line. And what you're doing is you're growing other people. That's a leader. That's a real leader. That's different than management. So emotional currency is always going back and forth with whoever you're interacting with. Whether it's employees or your personal life or whatever, emotional currency is always going. So you as a leader have to regulate it and be conscious of your actions. I have made mistakes and I have failed in every aspect of my life, not being aware of the emotional currency I'm feeling and I'm sending out to others, where I've reacted versus taking time to freeze and respond, where that's what I really should have done. Now, 10 years into my Wall Street game, I'm at a point that I learned that I need to freeze instead of react, because I used to not trust anyone in my little box, come out and be like, oh, you're coming to harm me? I'm going to fight you. Like, I was like that. So I had to learn that that's not a good leadership trait in any aspect of your life. It just enhances conflict because it's provoking negative behavior. So sometimes when people do things, you have to forgive their behavior. And by forgive it, it's not saying it's okay. It's saying, I'm not coming from a place of anger. I'm not meeting your negative emotion with anger and frustration. I'm going to meet your emotion from a place of love. Let me tell you, it is so challenging to do that. Every day I have to remind myself to come from a place of love, even when I don't want to. It is hard, it is difficult, it's challenging, but it's rewarding. It's the most rewarding behavior that I have ever done in my career, and it drives results. I promise you, it drives results. So what happens when you come from that place, you're freezing, and you're saying, hey, this behavior is not okay, this doesn't work. Okay, but I'm not going to come from another negative emotion. I am not matching that emotion that's negative with negativity. So what you're doing is, when you're using the sandwich, you're also breaking down your negative feelings to demonstrate that you can lead from a positive place. I don't know any greater connection to God and any leadership that's closer to who God is than that. So when you're coming from that place, you're coming from a place of love. And when you're doing the sandwich, you're coming from a place of tough love without you ever having to punish anyone. So it's important to think about how we come across to others, and that we're inspiring behaviors that move everyone around us closer to God, right? Or the source or the universe. However you interpret your relationship, your connection in your soul to God, or again, whatever you call that, that is what you always need to move people towards. So anytime they're feeling negative, every time they're getting a behavior, and every time you're feeling negative, you're moving away from leadership that represents who God is. So it's easier to do that. It's more challenging to inspire, but it's more rewarding. It drives results, and you'll see people getting promoted left and right, and you will see that you're building a force of alliances, and people that are going to come to bat for you, and people that respect you, and people that admire you, and people that value you as a leader. That's what that means. So some of the takeaways from this conversation is redefine discipline and what that means. It's not punishment, right? It's creating a standard and maintaining the standard. Understanding that you have to respect yourself so others respect you, meaning that you are disciplined in your standards. You are disciplined in what you're doing through your own actions, not just setting the standard for others. You have to live that out, and you will automatically gain respect, regardless of how old you are or your gender. I've worked in field, being in the Marine Corps, being in Wall Street, youngest female, and I've entered leadership roles where I've had to be a leader towards men and women who are both way older than me, and in their minds, they feel that they should be where I am and I should be where they are. It's happened to me consistently throughout my career. And the way that I've won people over is by doing that behavior of the sandwich, coming from a place of discipline and respect, but in a positive way. I have made the mistakes early on in my career where I wasn't doing that, and I was duking it out with people and punishing people. And all that did was hurt me, fracture the relationship with others that I had, and it hurt my team from building the way that it needed to, and it pushed people out instead of pushing people up. So what I realized was I needed to change, I needed to evolve so that I can pull people in, inspire, and lift them up when they don't even realize that they need to lift themselves up. So that is the most important thing that you really need to take away. And the how you do it is the sandwich. So just keep that in mind, and I hope that this is something that you value. Again, if you like it, subscribe, share, or join our group, MST Veterans. Have a good night.